And yeah, that's to ages 0 to 2 years old.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the video where I'm going to talk about Omnipolitics. I wish I had a video right in front of me that I could just talk directly off of. It would be a lot easier, but I'm not going to do a response video. And honestly, I went to his actual page and looked at it, and he has some apology videos. I will leave the description to his channel as well as a multitude of others, including the live debate that he had with Andy and Blaire, as well as Suit Yourself, and there'll be a few other links to some information that would be important to parents or any guardian of that matter that oversees children, and some statistics people probably are not aware of that are actually quite horrible about pedophilia. These are the arguments that Omnipolitics brought up. Like, I don't know about the most recent events, most recent YouTube videos that he's made, but in the ones that I will be addressing, he says one of the arguments is kids are sexual beings. His preference in children is between the ages of 3 to 12. He says that children are curious about genitals. He also argues that pedophilia is natural because it exists in the animal kingdom, and also tries to subscribe it to a sexual orientation and mental disorder. Now, with the children are interested in genitals, there is a phase in a child's life where they do explore their bodies. That is not sexual. I think that goes without saying. I don't think I need to really elaborate on that anymore. That is not implying a sexual curiosity. It's just a curiosity of their own body. Moving on. I can't really argue on the base that it is a mental disorder, because technically, by all rights, it is a mental disorder. But there are some interesting facts that I would like to bring up. First of all, I would like to talk about the definitions, and I know this seems incredibly simple, and I don't know, I feel like I have to be a basic bitch about this. So, the definitions of prepubescent and postpubescent, it seems relatively simple, but I'm going to be a basic bitch, is that prepubescent means you are not sexually developed. That is the actual definition of that. You won't find that if you type it into Google. I don't know. They just never ever listen to a definition that repeats the word in its definition itself. That is not a definition. That is ridiculous. But that is what prepubescent is. They are not sexually developed. In fact, human beings are a very interesting case when it comes to this. When human beings are born, we are not fully developed like, well, most animals aren't. But I mean, we are extra not developed when we come out of the womb. You can think that on our highly capable cerebral cortexes and frontal lobes. If it wasn't for that, we would probably come out as able-bodied as most other animals. Like most animals, when they come out of the womb, they're capable of walking, they have fur, they have a multitude of things that human beings just don't. We are not very developed when we come out of the womb. We continue a lot of our development through our childhood before we even reach adolescent stages. So we're not even developed at 3. 3 to 12 is like developmental stages. There are even some animal species that can even go as far as to eat the regular food that their dietary practices that they would have as an adult when they just pop straight out of the womb. Guinea pigs are an example of that. I've raised many guinea pigs. I know this about them. They actually, if the mother dies, they can go ahead and eat hay and grass and all kinds of stuff. They can do this. They have teeth when they're born. Pretty crazy. But human beings are not like that. When we come out, we are very undeveloped compared to most animals in the animal kingdom. Aside from that, as far as the... And then we have, post-pubescent. Okay, so that is when a person reaches the age where they are sexually developed. Their testes have dropped. They're capable of producing sperm. Females have started... I said again. I'm so sorry about that. But the females have started producing eggs. They start having periods. They start the development of breasts. This is where you start entering the phase, the stages of prepubescent, or not pre, I'm sorry, post-pubescent, where they are becoming sexually mature, able to, sexually developed. Before that, it's not there. So then he argues that this happens in the animal kingdom, that pedophilia happens in the animal kingdom. Well, not really. Now, they don't have a age of consent in the animal kingdom, and of course, why would they? They don't think logically, and they don't have the enormous propensity for logic and rational thinking like we do. So of course not. Of course they don't have a legal age of consent. But it's not natural. It's not as natural as he thinks it is. In the animal kingdom, you do not see animals trying to mate with its own kind that is not sexually mature. I've seen it in guinea pigs. I've used to raise and breed these things. Incest happens in the guinea pig world, yes. I had that happen with guinea pigs, surprisingly. There was no, weird birth defects, but the male will not try and mate with a guinea pig that is not sexually developed yet and capable of rearing offspring, and that is the case through many different species of animals. And I got a link. I'll show you a picture of the link right here, and I'll leave the description to that below. It talks about animal mating practices. This is something you would be aware of if you were in biology, or I'm going to use the word zoophile. It's actually a scientific term for people who take care of really rare exotic animals. Alright? People who take care of animals and are experts in their field of veterinarian sciences and stuff, they have to be aware of reproduction practices amongst animals. This is just something that comes with the territory. They know about it. So, moving onward, talking about the psychological development of children, I've got another clip right here. Alright, this one I thought was interesting. Actually, there's a diagram in it that talks about the child development periods and the age groups that they're kind of lumped into. But here is a nice little thing that I found on it. I'm going to read it to you. It'll be in this description here. I'm going to read this. Of the two major socializing agents in children's lives, the family environment and the formal educational institutions, it is the family and its function, a primary socializer of the child, that predominates in the first 5 years of life. Middle childhood, by contrast, is characterized by a child's readiness for school, being self-assured and interested, knowing what kind of behavior is expected, being able to wait to follow directions, and getting along with other children. The fact that you have to wait to a certain point in a child's development for them to understand how to follow directions, that I think just speaks for itself. Fuck you, Omnipolitics. Fuck you and everything you stand for. But on with it because I have more thing. Now, as far as going into the sexual orientation, it's definitely not that. Here's some interesting facts about pedophilia that I did not see brought up in the debate between Blaire and... I don't blame them for that, but I wanted to put this out there for people to know as a fact. When I turned in a pedophile, I talked to a criminal psychologist as well as multiple investigators, including an investigator that specializes in what they call cybergram divisions, which is where they investigate child pornography. They specialize in computer... They're basically really, really, really high up on the totem pole of IT techs and hacking, but they're detectives. They work with the police department and investigations. I talked to them about the situation. This is what I learned. I'm not going to go out and bother. I did find some statistics. I'll talk about that in a second. But one thing that was not brought up, and I would like for people to be aware of this, is that during that debate with Blaire White, if you watch the video, I'll leave the link in the description below. If you watch the video, you talk about how he is consistently saying he knows he's a pedophile because he has a desire, an attraction. He knows that he has a desire for children. Alright, this is dangerous already, and I'll tell you why. In criminal psychology, what the detectives talked to me about, they said it was a good thing that I caught Aaron when I did, because this is how it starts. This is the progression in criminal psychology. This is what the police learn about pedophiles. They start out with the desire. Then, because they talked about this and they argued with Omnipolitics about this in the live stream with Blaire White. They asked him, have you looked at child pornography? He said no. Well, guess what? It starts with the desire, then it moves to the pornography, and the pornography becomes not enough, and then it moves to the actual act, and after the actual act, eventually they become so roughhousing with their victims. There's multiple cases where these pedophiles have actually, whether it was intended or not, most of the time it's not intended, they end up murdering a child. How's that for food for thought for you? That's some fucked up information. The reason they told me that it was good when I caught him when I did, because he had already reached the reason I knew he was a pedophile is because I caught him with the child pornography. At that point, if gone unabided by anyone, if not stopped, it does eventually lead to the act, which I think personally Aaron probably did partake in the act. I have my own personal reasons for that, but that's aside the point. The point is that once they reach that phase where they're going out and committing the act, after they've gone through the pornography stage, if they do not get caught eventually, it leads to murder. The murdering of a child. And like I said, it's not even intentional murder. It's just a child is not meant for that. Another thing I would like to bring up about that is they talked about the petrification of children, or even rape victims go through this. When a person seizes up and holds still, they're literally frightened to the point that they can't move. They are in a state of catatonia. They can't move. They are literally petrified from fear. No, a child's body is not meant for that. Their psyche is not meant for that. They are not developed when they come out of the womb. I came across a site, and this will be important for parents everywhere. I will leave the link to the site. Here's a screenshot. Alright. So anyway, one of the things on here that I found interesting to back up what I'm saying, because yes, I did hear this from a criminal psychologist and detectives and stuff, and that should be good enough for you as far as reputable source. but you know, a lot of people like to see it. So I will leave the link to this, but by the FBI homicide reports between 1976 to 1994, I know, fucking, that's old news, but this is interesting. This is about protecting children and sexual predators. That's what this site is dedicated to, is protecting children from them. This was done by the FBI homicide reports. Between 1976 to 1994, 37,000 children had been murdered. So, do we really want to call it a sexual orientation? Absolutely not. I have gotten to know a pedophile on a very personal basis, and I think that any kind of sexual act that is in kind of a rape area, it seems to me, because really, a person can be homosexual, they can be bisexual, they can be heterosexual, but still be a pedophile. And there's something very interesting about pedophiles too, is sometimes they may profess a particular desire for one gender over the other, but generally speaking, they don't always care about the gender. It seems to be, it's not really a sexual act. It's more of an act of trying to assert dominancy over somebody or something that's weaker than you. In fact, the pedophile that I knew of was not only into children, he was also into bestiality. Again, having power or authority over something or someone that is weaker than you. That's what I think. And to be honest, when it comes to these people, we have chemically castrated. We've done things to make it so that we take away their sex drive. They will actually find other ways to penetrate and do things to their victims. It's not a sexual act. It's an act of aggression and violence. That's what it is. By all rights, it is a mental condition that needs to be heavily monitored and watched. It's not something we should just brush off our shoulders. Woo, he's not acting on the act. Thank goodness. Really, that's a good thing that he's not acting on it. But he should be heavily monitored by psychologists and by legal people. These are people that are dangerous. I just read to you. And I read more statistics on that page from the FBI's database that are quite frightening, to be honest. There's some psychological stuff, and I will leave that in the description, the links in the description below for the psychology stuff, this criminal psychology studies done on pedophiles, so you can read about that if you like. But I have no empathy, no sympathy, nothing. I just no. I will grant no pedophile any leniency when it comes to me. None. And maybe that's really hardcore, maybe it's cold-hearted. I don't give a fuck. I really don't give a fuck. So all of Omnipolitics arguments, I think I've done a pretty good job at refuting that using some pretty irrefutable data backed up by criminal psychology, biology, environmental science, things of that nature. So by all means, you can go and even fact check the concept that when we come out of the womb, we're not fully developed as human beings. The brain, the human brain, does not fully develop until you're 25 years old. Go look it up if you want. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know what there is to enjoy it. Maybe you enjoyed it because I am shooting down a pedophile. Like Omnipolitics, if you find my video, I have this for you. Honestly. Fuck you. Drink poison. I can't advocate that. I can't advocate that kind of thing. I'm against violence, but I think that he is somebody that should be heavily watched by psychiatrists, psychologists, and probably the law. And I'm sorry to impede on somebody's... I'm not sorry. Impede on his civil liberties and civil rights, his supposed right to privacy. You're talking about somebody that could potentially grow up in adulthood and murder a child. I don't like that potentiality. I don't like it at all. And it's something that can be avoided. And he needs help. Period. It's not a question of getting help. It's he needs it. Period. End of story. Anyway, and suit yourself. If you see this video, I hope you do include it in the menagerie of videos you've collected on Omnipolitics. Sorry I'm so late on making this video. I do work a full-time job, and I tried to get it as soon as possible. And this was as quickly as I could. So, hopefully you see it. I would appreciate it. But if not, I mean, oh well. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And with that, I'm out.